Unemployed and Afraid acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this episode on and of the land where you, the listener, are tuning in from. We would like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and extend our respect to any First Nations, Aboriginal, and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today, acknowledging that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Welcome to Unemployed and Afraid, a podcast that explores the glorious mess of building your own business with the people doing it. I'm your host and fellow business builder, Kim Curtin. Thank you for being here. Let's get into some good, honest, small business chat. Hello, listener and fellow business builder. I am curious to know something. When you're working on your business and you inevitably notice it's one of those days where you're not being very productive or you're a little distracted, what do you do? Because I blatantly pretend like it's not happening, then try desperately to be productive, only to not do anything even close to productive, and then beat myself up about how much of a terrible job I'm doing. If that's you, you're clearly not alone. And like me, you will have so much to learn from our amazing guest today about a different way to maybe approach those inevitable moments of a little bit less productivity than we'd like. In this chat with the wonderful Radhika Mayani, founder of Left-handesign, you'll hear about building a business that's sustainable for the planet and also recognizing when you yourself could be a little more sustainable in your day-to-day. She has so many brilliant insights to share, including the important role that awards can have on your business, the value of clear space and embracing the research phase, the internal journey that goes alongside the external business creation, testing the market with a small product line, the power of selling on ground, being in less of a hurry to grow your business so it grows as it's meant to, and having business boundaries with yourself and with others. If you came to Unemployed and Afraid looking for inspo and small business solidarity, well, you are going to get it. Let's get into the chat. I'm here with the wonderful Radhika Mayani, founder of Left-handesign, a sustainable stationery brand based in Singapore, which is now in Australia, and a big yay to that. Founded in 2017, Left-handesign is the result of Radhika's passion for nature and stationery. She struck a balance between these two interests and launched Bij, the Sanskrit word for seed, in a collection, which includes a range of stationery products such as pens, pencils, notebooks, and more that are all embedded with seeds. An innovative approach to the life cycle of stationery and a commitment to sustainability and reducing waste. It's also just really cute stationery, which I am 100% here for. Since its launch, Left-handesign has received the SME 500 award by the Association of Trade and Commerce Singapore and Most Innovative Sustainable Everyday Product Brand 2023 by APAC Insiders Singapore Business Awards. Radhika herself has received the Entrepreneur 100 Award by the same Association of Trade and Commerce in Singapore, Top 10 Indian Women-Founded Companies in Asia 2023 from Women Entrepreneur India, and Inside Small Business Top 50 Small Business Leaders Award in Australia this year. Just unbelievable stuff. She rightly believes that a sustainable journey is an everyday doing of conscious steps, which turns into a habit, and that we all have to make an effort. Damn straight. And what a journey so far. Radhika, welcome to Unemployed and Afraid.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here, Kim, and I'm really excited to be here.
It's so wonderful to have you here. And I really have just enjoyed your stationery and researching it so much because as business owners, is there anything more fun than having fresh, beautiful stationery to put our dreams on and just get ourselves organized? It's the best.
Absolutely. It's been a dream to where we were in 2017 versus now where we are in Australia. I cannot even imagine how the journey has shaped up.
Oh, and so much more to come. Let's get into a little bit about you to start with. How would your best friend describe you, do you think?
I'm lazy most of the times. Very introvert. I don't mix around a lot. If I'm going out with a friend, I would just stick to one friend instead of me going around. So that's where I stick to my comfort. Yeah, that's who I am.
Yeah, I think a lot of us can relate to that. And I try really hard, particularly in networking circles, not to do it because it's really what I want to do is just hang out with someone I connect with and be like, can we just be buds all night?
Yeah, exactly.
So before Left Hand Design was this incredible business we get to talk about, who were you?
My background is hospitality and advertising. So before that, I have done fine arts and I have specialized in visual arts. And I started my journey into advertising from O&M. I did my internship, which is Ogilvy and Mather in India. Then I joined Low Lintas and I was an art director there. Then I went to Dentsu, India. So I've done a lot of agencies. Then I moved to Dubai. And I also worked at YNR, which is Young and Rubicon. And now all the names have changed, but back then that was my career. And we used to work on brands, design, photography, launching campaigns. That's what I used to do. And I used to love doing that. Moving to Singapore, I changed my industry from advertising to hospitality. So I started working with hotels. I still stayed with my own expertise of design and all of that because that's where my expertise is. But changing of industry was like fresh eyes on everything, a different industry and a different sector altogether. And I absolutely loved working with interior designers, architects, designing properties, residential houses. So it was really fun and I loved my job. Absolutely.
I really romanticize the advertising industry as just, I've been on the other side in media, but never in house and agency. I love to think of it like Mad Men, especially those incredible creative minds like you.
Yeah. It's different. Like advertising back then, there were a lot of awards. And it's funny enough that back then I never used to believe in that. Like winning an award, if you are doing a good campaign and the client has loved it and it is really done successfully, you don't need an award for it. But now that I have a business, I really understand how much winning an award means to a small business like us because it gives a lot of credibility. So my whole perspective changed from how I used to work back then and now that I own a business, the importance of having an award.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think we'll get into that a little bit more when we talk about your business growth, because I think that's a really interesting topic to delve into and how that comes about. Before we get into that, though, your hospitality career, I'd really love to know what, I guess, impact that had on you being the preceding one right before this step. How did that impact you and what came next?
So I think hospitality is all about glam and the showbiz of what a hotel is. Everything is, it smells good, it feels good, you're greeted well when you go into a hotel. It's all the chic and it's all about that, right? But what we don't see as visitors is what's happening at the back end of the house or the back end of the hotels. And it was just an eye-opening experience for me working in and out in the hotel in design and marketing. It just made me realize the amount of wastage what was happening from toiletries. And I worked with every department as a designer, whether it was linen or whether it was toiletries, whether it was F&B, whether it was front desk, the stationery which is being used in the hotels, like every small things, how it got replenished or how it was getting recycled or what was the end goal or end solution to that. Nobody knew like what is really happening. Even the beautiful flowers which were put in the foyer and the lobby, they smelled and looked so good. But what was really happening to the dead flowers? Like what is like the change? And there are a lot of thousands of dollars which are spent behind these arrangements. So I think it just provoked the questions and the sensibility in me that what is happening? Where are we going as a hotel business? And what is somebody doing about a certain part of it? And there are so many other parts in a hotel. And again, I wanted to stick to my expertise, which is design. And I love stationery. I'm such a sucker for stationery. I travel around the world and I'm like, the first thing I have to go to is into a stationery shop, whether it's London or whether it's Japan or whether it's Paris or whether it's NYC or whether it's Australia. Just walking into a design store, I just love it. And I was like, how can I have my expertise, the stationery, which I love, and the most important thing I love is nature. Like, how can I connect these three dots and create something more meaningful if I have to launch my own business? So, yes, it's been quite an eye opening journey working in hospitality.
Was there something in particular that made you realize you wanted to be in business for yourself?
My business gene and has been kicked off more than 2016. Like when I was in Dubai, I used to do handmade cards and I used to do it my day job. And then over the weekends, I used to participate in marketplaces where I used to sell my cards. So it was more of a hobby than a business, but I loved it. Like I love being part of the community. Everybody's doing handmade stuff, but obviously it was not a business, but it was just more as a hobby. That was back in 2006. So left hand design, in fact, the name, it was already there when I launched my handmade card business. It was called left hand design back then. And then fast forward to 2016 and 2017, when I had to really think of launching my business and looking for something I really wanted to do, I just came back to what it was. Like I just brought that back to life with new strategy, new business strategies, and understanding like I want to introduce something sustainable, a zero waste movement, or something which goes back to earth. How can I tie everything together? And that's how Left Hand Design was born again.
May I ask a silly question? Are you in fact left-handed?
Yes.
Yes. We are connected in that way. We are very special no matter what anybody says, even if we can't open a can properly.
No, or
Yeah.
cut paper. Yeah, I loved it. Like when I used to do marketplaces back in 2006, like when in Dubai, and all the lefties used to stand with, oh, is this only for left-handed people? And still, when I still do marketplaces, and I said, no, this is for everyone. But all the lefties would definitely come and say hi to me, which was amazing. I loved it.
Absolutely. And let's maybe one day work out a way to stop smudging our own work. Enough about that though. So you've got this idea kicking around, you're joining the dots, you're starting to think about, okay, what do great stationery pieces look like, but from a sustainable perspective. So where did the idea for your products start from then? And how did you get started creating them?
So obviously everything was boiling in, and I just had that urge to connect the dots and understand my journey. So in 2015, I think I launched the business and everything, not officially, but just to see how things go. And then in 2016, I took a year off. Like I just quit my job because I couldn't handle both. And I really needed to sit down and see what I really wanted to do with the business. And I had to research. So I quit my corporate job. I took a year off, and I went to India. I stayed there for 3 months, which is one of the longest time I was ever been in India after I've left India. So my parents were a little, what's happening here? Is she back? I said, no, mom, I'm not back. I'm just here for my research. But yeah, I think it was more of an internal journey more than the external. It was more internally putting the pieces together, like what I want to offer to my customers and my consumers, and what I really want to bring it out as a product. Secondly, if I would buy this product, and would it excite me? And thirdly, obviously, the quality of the product had to be matched up to international standards, because I'm selling it in Singapore and in Asia. And now it's going to be Australia and New Zealand and the APAC region. So obviously, these are the three things which were really important for me to work out. And yeah, it's quite a journey inside before it went outward. Yeah.
And was there anything in particular about creating a product? I think a lot about the practicalities of a design process and then a manufacture process, and who to work with and how to navigate that territory. Because, yeah, so much of it comes down to we have no choice but to do desk research or ask someone who's done it before, which is always a challenge if, they're potentially competitors as well. How did you navigate that space?
I started small with a small batch of FSC certified stationery first to begin with, to understand like how the designs were perceived, and it did well, but I was not convinced. I was like, this is not enough. It needs more. It needs, FSC is great. It's got all the trademarks and all your stamps and your everything. But I was like, this is not enough. Like it is missing something. And so I introduced the pencils first. So the pencils, I got in touch with a social enterprise in India, which they hired a rural community to make these pencils, which was amazing. I love the purpose and the cost. I don't work with them now, but that's how I had started. And it was just amazing to see how these women and children, and how the children were getting supported, because the women were working and the children were getting education, which was great. And so we started with the plantable pencils first. And then after I launched that, then I introduced the pens. And then few months later down, I introduced notebooks. And then slowly I went into all the paper products eventually after seeing how the market fit was, how the consumers were receiving it, whether they liked it, disliked it, how the printing was, how it really worked as a product. It grew into different herbs. So I had to test all of that before I went all out full-fledgedly in a whole range of stationery.
That's really interesting. How did you get it out there to be able to start getting some of that market research back in terms of your marketing, any partnerships? How did that work?
So what happened, I think, so 2016, I launched the products. 2017, I came back to Singapore and I officially registered my company and I went live. And I thought that everything's going to pick up because I knew in my head that I love it. Everybody's going to love it. But it didn't work out the way I intended to be because being such a sustainable stationery range, people did not understand the concept. Why do we need to plan this after? Like, why are you adding another layer to it? Instead of simplifying it, people thought I'm adding another layer to it. But in a way, it is simplifying it because there's no waste to it. So I guess for me, I had to really pivot my business and my marketing and my sales strategy to educating and creating awareness for this niche category instead of making sales. So the first thing I went was I did all the marketplaces. So I was on ground activities, universities, schools, a lot of brands like the STB, Singapore Tourism Board, hotels. They had these sustainable markets and marketplaces where I used to participate. And then I used to do education and talk about what we are offering. And this is alternative to your traditional stationery. Single use versus zero waste. We had to educate people. We had posters and a lot of other things which went with it to really educate what it really means. So I think marketplaces and on-ground activities were first 2 years was major.
I had a guest I chatted to recently who went from having a brick and mortar store into chatting with people at markets, and the feedback that you can get from people who can touch and feel the product and play with it and get to know you as a founder as well, and your passion to be able to develop that elevator pitch, I guess, has been a real gift as well. Has that helped you with things like PR and getting additional support?
All of that has come eventually, especially the PR, which has come eventually since we've been into the business for the last 6 years now. But what I learned mainly through these marketplaces was customer feedback, what they really needed, how their thinking process is, and whether they are ready to switch. So ready to adapt, ready to make a change. It was a slow process, but they loved the novelty of it so much that they bought the stuff and the kids loved it. That's the best part. Like the kids could walk up and say they had to buy from me because they loved the concept of it going back to earth. I was like, it's so simple. When kids can get it, why can't the adults get it? That's such a sustainable product and it grows into herbs and veggies. So it was amazing to see reactions and feedback and criticism and design flaw, or if it had any, to understand what they are really looking for. We introduced products, what the customers needed. Like, for example, we did not have a cocoa pot, cocoa peat with our product range because every time somebody used to come, they're like, oh, do you sell a planter or do you sell a pot or do you sell some soil? Because they don't want to immediately go and buy that if they don't have it in the house. So we added that into the range. So these are small things, gift tags, small things. We just went with understanding what was needed, what was the gap, and how we could fill that in.
Yeah, I think it's important to point that out, that your business as it ends up is definitely not where it starts. So many of us think we have to have the full end-to-end, everything at once, but it's quite okay to just start with one product, or even if one product is your approach, just to get something going and then iterate. I've seen that with this podcast as well. As I've done more and released more, I see what, is helpful to people, what's valuable, and, I get better at it. It's like with anything, you just got to start somewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just a point of starting and just sticking to that passion and that purpose. And it's like, why did you start it? So whenever I feel less motivated or I'm not just feeling it, I just go back to those photos when I started off those marketplaces. And when I see that, and I'm like, oh my God, like the amount of energy I have put in into those marketplaces in those first 2 years. But if somebody tells me now, I'll be like, thank you very much. I don't think I can stand from 9 to 5 in a marketplace and I'll be like exhausted. But that's a journey I have crossed to get here. And it just makes me feel happy that I could be part of this community to give and to introduce something more, which I think everybody should adapt eventually as we go forward. Yeah.
I really love that you bring up the term journey and the experience of journey as well. I can't remember where I saw it, but I remember seeing some criticism somewhere in one of my random platforms that I was looking at to the use of the word journey in context to a small business growth, medium, but any business growth. But you cannot argue with the fact that it quite literally is a journey. You start somewhere and you travel along and shit gets real and random stuff happens and you go backwards and you go forwards, you go sideways, you fall apart. If that's not the actual epitome of a journey, I don't really know what is. And it's not to a destination. It's just
No.
in and of itself, a journey.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think as a founder, like I'm a creative person, like I am a design creative person. I'm not a salesperson. I hate numbers. I should not even say that, but I don't do Excel sheets. But I do everything now. I had to learn. I don't like sales, but I do sell. I have to sell. So I guess these are different skills. You just adapt, you unlearn, you learn, and then you again unlearn, and you just keep moving forward with those. Obviously you will not be excellent with in everything, but you have got to learn your foundations to be able to go forward.
Yeah, you are so right. There really is just so many random skills that we have to learn. But I really love that you called out sales skills because I just think it is the most important skill that we develop as we go, and we have to lean into it and nurture it. I say this, I've been very open with the challenge that I've had in selling myself as a creator and this podcast as well to partners. Which is ironic because I spent a very long time in a sales career selling media. So it's the irony. I know how to do it. And yet, even still for me, it's hard. So I just think it's important for people to understand that and for the listener to look at the sales skills associated with your business. And if you're someone who, A, doesn't really feel comfortable selling or know how to sell, please 100% lean into it. But also know that it's normal that selling yourself and your own business is twice as hard as selling anything else.
Absolutely. And look, on the other side, not everybody is going to understand that. Like when I go out and sell my product, not everybody is going to reciprocate the same way as I do, because budget could be a problem, or the product could be a problem, or whether they are not ready for it, or they are not on that sustainable journey as yet. So they've not kickstarted that. So for us, it's quite hard because it's such a niche category that not every clients, like most of my clients who are repetitive, have stuck with me so far from Singapore to Australia, and I keep working with them. But the new ones, it's hard. You can convince them with a few things, like now we are a carbon neutral company. We do a lot of things towards sustainability and everything, but some just don't convert. And I'm okay with that because it has to grow organically, the relationships. Yeah.
Another fantastic point that you bring up is nailing that sustainability aspect of your business. So I think about this a lot because I think so many of us want to be carbon neutral or B Corp or be sustainable. But in practicality, when you start, there are some things you can do sustainably, and maybe financially there's some other aspects that aren't at your capability yet. But I'd love to talk a bit more about that, about how you've allowed your sustainability to grow through the processes you have.
So obviously my main focus was getting the product right. Once I have the product, which is working towards all the goals, what we are looking at, then comes certifications, then comes, because obviously, as you said, like finances are tight. I'm bootstrapped from day one and still am. So it's hard. We need to evaluate and calculate everything, inventories, and I don't make bulk inventory at all because I don't like wastage. So we have smaller quantities. And if it's a big order, then I do it on back order. orders and I deliver that. So we are very particular about that. Then, and imagine after 6 years now, we have applied for B Corp. Now we are carbon neutral. So it's a journey. Like, I don't think in the first year I can say I want to do this. No, it doesn't work that way. Everything happens at its own time, at its own pace, and how your budgets are. Yeah, and you allocate it accordingly.
You touched on something really interesting there. I think understanding how the bootstrap process works and all of the kind of scary moments and the, oh dear, we're on the edge here to, oh, this is a bit better. Can you talk me through a little bit about how your financial journey went with this?
I was lucky enough that I had great jobs. I had a good income coming in. So I have saved up a lot of money in terms of if I had to start and fund myself, I was okay with it. And then obviously, if I needed my support of my husband, he was also okay to do that. So I think I just went with it. And I guess understanding your profitability is so important because your product, your margins, your wholesale, your retail, how much shipping fees. So all of that coming all together, it's so important to know what's your bottom line is and then working with that. Early on, I have met so many entrepreneurs that they just, oh, it's a profitable business. I'll hire this place. I'll hire two people. And then suddenly they're like, oh my God, I don't have any money in the bank. And I have done it backwards. Like first 6 years, I've worked from home. This is the first time ever I have got a studio here in Alexandria. And now still I feel that, oh my God, what have I done? But I'm happy that now I'm comfortable. I don't feel, oh my God, what if my bank balance is going to go zero tomorrow? No, I have worked it. I have logically made decisions to go towards that. And you need to make sure your expenses are on track.
I'm learning this and I'm learning this fast about how challenging that journey is. Just speaking frankly, I was just working for quite some time in ABN sole trader capacity and money would come into my bank account. I could just move things around and I could get things paid and I didn't really feel it as much. But then when you move to a PTY and you can't actually access anything other than what's existing and you're like, oh shit. Like I have to have cash flow in, be out in time with expenses.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's very important because I think growing up also we've been very conservative, like as coming from that mentality of saving or you spend what you have, not on credit cards. So I guess all those things help. But yes, you need to be very careful of your expenses, your profits. And if it's profitable, then you need to make sure that you don't spend all of that, put it back into the business and grow at the speed at what you want to be at. Yeah.
Through this journey of getting where we are with your business, was there a moment or a time or a particular challenge that stands out in your mind as one that was particularly upending?
I think every day is a new challenge in the world of business, whether it's with your client or whether it's your supplier, whether it's your bank balance or whether what you want to do next 6 months. Like when I started, I did not even have a business plan. Like I just went with what my gut and my intuitions felt. And obviously, not everybody will get it right the first time. Luckily, I think my experience and my expertise that kind of just played into the role and I just got it right. But it's hard. Again, it's an inward journey. It's a completely internal journey, what you bring out externally. I hope that answered your question.
It does. And I think it's a beautiful statement that what happens for you internally plays so much into what you put out externally. I think that personal undoing of creating your business is not to be underestimated through the process. I can't think of anyone I've met who has considered this before they're starting the business. There's so many things you consider. How am I going to pay for this? Am I going to be able to draw a wage? Is this going to be good? Are people going to laugh at me? There's all of these things that are associated with the business that you think about before you get going. But I most certainly did not even give a 1 second thought to how much therapy it would be for me, but also I would need through the process and all of the just complete stripping back of ego and the shadow reveal of the stuff that holds you back. Like it is intense and you just do not think of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And even having a mentor or somebody whom you look up to go and just reference check whether you're doing the right thing. You will eventually do what you want to do, but then it's always nice to have it, whether it's just a conversation with a friend or your husband or your partner or whoever, just to be comfortable. Because I do a lot of to and fro with my husband. This is going on. What do you think? Eventually, obviously, what is right for the business, I'll do that. But it's always nice to have a second opinion about everything and slowing it down. Like I take a lot of time with everything. I'm not in a hurry to go anywhere. I'm not hurry to make millions of dollars. So I always take my time. And maybe sometimes I feel that I'm taking too much time. I need to hurry it up. So it's both the ways. Yeah.
I need some of that energy in my life. So I'm really glad we're speaking today, because the ability to slow down, I really need to employ some of it, because things happen when they happen and not a second before. But I'm also very interested in hearing about that relationship with your husband, and when you talk about work. And now this is a bit of a loaded question, because most recently my glorious acupuncturist, who is basically the person keeping me alive at this state, was talking to me about my inability to eat calmly while I'm working in work mode, and the effect that has. And now the problem is that because I meet with my partner for lunch and I start banding around ideas and I start problem solving, we start talking about business. And so therefore that inadvertently means I'm never getting any rest in those key moments of the day. I'm interested in your experience in that, and if you've had to employ any boundaries with the home life conversation of business.
Oh my God, this is such a crucial one because you will not believe as much as calm and collected and slow what I say. I have no boundaries whatsoever because what happens is that this is your baby. Your business is your baby. It's 24/7, 365 days. It doesn't take a break. And it doesn't mean that you don't have to take a break, but your mind's churning. It's churning ideas. It's churning solutions, problems. How do I fix this? How do I tackle this? How do I answer to that person? So it's constantly on a grind. But what I have learned, so I think changing countries, it just gave me a lot of perspective that I need to slow down at what race or what speed I was in Singapore because it was a new product, it was a new market, it was a completely new business. And the energy I've put in was like 500% more than what right now I'm doing because I guess it's on autopilot now. I think at a certain point you will feel that maybe a few years down the line. But I think most important was self-care. Yoga, I do every day. That's one thing I do every day in the morning, 7:15 to 8:15 or 9 o'clock. It depends. If I am up early, I take a morning class and just be there in that moment, connect with and not have any thoughts about business or what's going to happen today, or just enjoy that moment. And I think that has really helped me to see things a little bit more clearly without panicking. And sometimes I do panic, but I always reflect to how I got there. Why am I doing this? Why is it so important for me and this purpose and this journey and my passion to be shared with the community and my consumers and my clients and everyone, which keeps me motivated in every way.
That makes a lot of sense. That body mind presence is just so incredibly important and so hard to get when you're in the chaos of the day. So, yeah, it's a wonderful practice to have in place. What do you wish you knew before you started this journey?
Oh, how hard it is. And being a solo entrepreneur, I wish I had a partner or a co founder or somebody to work with. People who have co founders or people who have husbands and wives working together, they're lucky because you segregate responsibilities. And when you are a solo entrepreneur, you're doing everything. Like I talk to myself so much, sometimes I feel I'm going to go crazy if I keep doing that. It's not nice, but it's so hard. It is hard. Yeah, it's a hard journey.
I completely understand that. Yeah, it's funny the conversations you get into with yourself. And it's also challenging because you don't have, this is certainly a me problem, maybe not a you problem, but that accountability as well. Sometimes when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'll go for the easy tasks and the tasks that are administrative and just have to happen instead of pushing into that uncomfortable space that you have to, be it pitching to someone for a story, a feature, or you avoid those things and you're by yourself. Is that your experience?
I think what I've learned so far is like whenever I'm feeling distracted, I just shut down. I don't do anything. I might read a book or listen to music or listen to podcasts. So I just divert myself if I'm not feeling productive enough. But the moment I feel productive, I think 2 hours straight and I'm done. So maybe in a day, I just work for 2 to 3 hours, but it's so good that I feel like I've done a lot of it and I have achieved a lot in 3 hours. Versus if I sit in front of the computer and I'm still distracted, then it's not working. I try to focus my energies that way. Yeah. I just switch off.
I could learn a lot from that. I could learn a lot from you, period. This is excellent. Where do you hope to see your business grow to? And pardon the seed pun, it just happens.
I think there's a lot of work to be done still. The space is such that it's still a lot of awareness and education needs to be brought in. Although Australia is, I think, far more open and sustainable in many ways. But I think there's lots of work to be happened. And just talking about why a single use stationery is not good versus why you need to use zero waste implantable stationery. Yeah, I mean, we are also introducing a recycling system here in our studio, and where we will take all your used pens, pencils, markers, which you can drop into the recycling bin, and then we will send it out for the recycling center. So we are collecting that, which we didn't do it back then in Singapore because I used to work from home. But now that we have the studio, I want to do that and give everyone, so everybody can just mail it to me and then I'll send it to the recycling center, at least for the stationery. Yeah, just educating, creating awareness, making it fun, not boring, not serious, because it can get a little serious when you're talking about the nature, the planet. Everybody understands whatever you use, eat, grow, everything has an impact. Everything, whatever you do. So being mindful of that impact is one step towards sustainability, one step towards making that switch to use and grow instead of use and throw culture. And that's the movement we want to create, that you use and grow instead of use and throw.
Absolutely love that. You've shared so many incredible insights here. And particularly, I think what I'm taking away of this, and I take away from so many of my conversations, is just how deeply challenging it is to do this stuff alone, which is exactly why we exist, for all of the people who need a little bit more encouragement and to feel a little bit more seen on the journey. And in your sharing of your story, you've allowed that for the listener. So in return, what can the listener and I do to support you as you grow your business?
Just be there with us throughout the journey. Just stick with us, ups and downs. There are going to be good times and bad times. There are going to be a lot of mistakes which will happen along the way. Just stick by us and just support us and make the switch with us.
I'm going to make sure to have the links to your website and your socials in the show notes so that the listener can go enjoy all your beautiful stationery. I know that you have a very generous discount code that the listener can find in the show notes to get around your incredible products as well. So I will be going and purchasing some beautiful things, and I hope that many others will join me in that. Just a big thank you to you for sharing your journey today and for all that you're creating. It has been a pleasure to hear your story.
Thank you, Kim, for having me. It was amazing to chat with you. And it's always wonderful to just go back in time and relive those times and moments and, why I started this business. So it's always nice to visit. It just feels great.
Oh, I'm so pleased to hear. It's nice to look back and see how far you've come. It's been a pleasure to share it. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
One quick thing, if you're hearing this, you've listened all the way through. Hopefully that means you really like this podcast, because it's pretty generous to give up 40 odd minutes of your time for it. If that is the case, please leave the show a star rating and a review. It helps me reach so many more people who might also listen all the way through and get some benefit and some support out of it. Not to mention, it puts a real spring in my step to read them. Thank you for listening to Unemployed and Afraid, the podcast for small business builders with your host, me, Kim Curtin. If you love it, you can say thanks with a star rating and a review. And of course, join the community on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Find us at Unemployed and Afraid wherever you're hanging out, and I'll see you there.